If you feel you've lost your mojo and need some direction, need to basically get your shit together, then listen into this episode because I'm joined by an amazing guy called Mark Aylward. He's a serial entrepreneur turned business coach who helps people to redefine their purpose and to find meaning in their work, to find a new path that actually serves them at the highest level. He's got some amazing resources and covers some cool topics and simple steps you can take to take those baby steps forward to move you from whatever place you're currently in, however low you currently feel or unmotivated, to a place where you are totally motivated and inspired to move forward and become the best version of you can be, and hopefully on the path to become super successful as well. And do listen to the end because Mark shares how you can get access to a free workbook and get a free consultation call with him to start your journey to a better life.
So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success.
Hi, Mark. Warm welcome to Systemize Your Success. Thank you so much for coming along and having a chat with me today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure.
Cool. And very nice to have you on. I've been having a quick look at your website and obviously the stuff you shared with me prior to us having a chat. And I think I'm going to enjoy this conversation. I think that a lot of the stuff you talk about is massively relevant to especially to men, but also just to business owners in general. And just the journey that you talk about on your website, specifically where I was looking, just I relate to it a lot. A lot of the steps and the just that I've taken over the past 9 years, but also the past couple of years, I feel just very aligned with what you are here to hopefully share with us. And so, yeah, let's get into it because obviously no one else except for me and you know what we're talking about. So let's kick off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, just a couple of minutes. Like, why is it you are here today? Why did you choose to do what you do? What do you do? And, what's the big why behind you and your work?
Yeah, I got to cram that into a couple of minutes, huh? Yeah, long story short, I'm a single father of 3 young adult children, 2 girls and a boy, all 3 of whom are entrepreneurs now as well. I have been an entrepreneur most of my life, specifically in the technical staffing business. So I've built and sold a couple of technical staffing companies, helping software engineers and people who touch the software development lifecycle find better work, whatever that might mean to them. That could be consulting work, full-time employee work, or starting their own business. And I sold 2 of those companies. So the process of building and going through due diligence and figuring out in hindsight, what I could have done differently in that process is part of that learning experience. And as I told you in the pregame talk we had there, I've started coaching a few years ago when I helped my kids find work after school. All 3 of them looked at me and said, "Dad, you've got to share this with others. No one's teaching this stuff. You know stuff. I don't think you even know what you know that others don't know." And it's all in the spirit of dreaming bigger, thinking outside of your own personal box that you've constructed over time. And part of that journey was a very contentious divorce, which put me in a position where I had to be mother and father to my 3 kids when they were young kids, teenagers. And that I needed to be mobile. So I needed to be able to have a laptop and a phone where I could do my work from anywhere: gymnasiums, dance recitals, teacher meetings, doctor's offices, stuff like that. And that was a 10-year journey where I just kind of cut my teeth on taking the experience of helping people find better work and all of that goes into that: the preparation, the interviewing, the negotiation, and the direction, helping people with clarity and giving people confidence, I suppose, that comes with clarity. And my challenge now is scaling that so that I'm not just trading my time for money. So I'm in the process of automating some things and bringing in some people that I can delegate things to that will do things that I don't care to do or don't want to do or am not good at. It's a waste of my time kind of thing. So that's a couple of minutes on who I am. And I just love serving other people because when people come to me, they're usually in a state of some sort of uncertainty, which makes them less confident, less forceful. The other thing I find, Steve, is most people, they've built their box, their professional box about their title, their what they do, what they can do, and most people don't understand, I think, that you can do a lot more than whatever you've done because 80, maybe 90% of your skills are transferable into many, many other things. So it's a very interesting conversation. It's a lot of fun for me, and when you see the light bulb go off, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so many things you just said in that intro really resonate with me. Just the journey I've been on. I was a came out of university with a good degree in computing, decided to do something else, went into property, decided I wanted to have a career, went into medicine, decided that actually that was the most restricting thing and took away all my freedom, which is my highest value, went back into entrepreneurship. And at each of those stages, the reason I tell that story is at each of those stages, like everything I learned pretty much in the previous stage in my career, if you call it that, has been massively beneficial going forward. And it's just the fear of change, which is often the thing that, makes you stick in something long. Like I think I stuck in medicine too long. I think I probably stuck in the property at the time too long. It's like that's in hindsight what I think that I took from all of that is that actually the change is the fear, or change is the challenge, not the actual doing it. It's the fear of the change, sorry, I should say. Yeah, so massively, massively relate to that. And yeah, just what do you primarily help people with now? Was the other thing I was saying, like, who do you help? What is your, I guess, your target audience? Like, who are the people that you're trying to help? What challenges do they have that resonate with that they resonate with you in your work? And then what is the first step you take them on?
Yeah, it's as I said to you when before we started recording, I had to pick a market because essentially what I do is helpful to almost everyone. If you're in a state of transition or you're in a state of uncertainty, and it doesn't even need to be professional. It can, because what I do, we dig deep into the personal side of things because everyone's motivations are personal, right? What you want to do, who you want to be. So I picked middle-aged men, and middle age is a pretty large group of people now. Not because I am particularly fond of them, even though I'm one of them. I just had to pick a market, and I thought, boy, I have a lot in common with that market, so I'm going to pick them. But I don't limit who I can help. I just limit who I market to, if that makes sense. And the first conversation is very simple. We just dig deep into who are you? Why are we talking? Why did you seek me out? What's the motivation behind that? And most of the time, it's some sort of level of dissatisfaction with what they're doing, and that runs the gamut, Steve. It could be disenfranchised with their boss, a culture that's toxic, or which is a word I don't really care for. It's everywhere now. Um, just aspirations. I want to do more. I want to serve other people. I want to find my purpose. I want to do more than just collect a paycheck. So, those reasons are abundant. And I dig with very simple questions. What does that mean? Why do you say that? Expand on that for me. And I actually wrote a workbook called Find Your True Purpose because I was having this conversation so frequently, so similarly, and so often. I thought, well, let me jumpstart the conversation. Go do the work in this workbook. It's a couple hours. Come back with the results and let's talk about that. So you don't have to do that, but that makes that first conversation much more productive. And it really is all about getting into, who are you? People want to tell you what they do. I want them to talk about who they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I've been through a similar process with one of my coaches over the past 12 months about understanding all the conditioning that's come into my world over the decades that I've been around and how that affects who I am, who I think I am, what I believe I can do. And then actually taking a moment in this adult stage of my life or middle age of my life and thinking, okay, great. So what does that all mean? And
Mm-hmm.
the question is like, why are we here? Well, what am I doing? What I'm doing? And these sorts of questions, which you just which you're alluding to here, like finding the answers to those questions is massively motivational. Like,
Hmm.
so if you've got like, it took me a long time to get there and to even think about doing this stuff. So I encourage anyone who's at that point. And a few years ago, I sat there completely despondent with like, why was I even doing this? Like, I had a family, young kids. That should have been a motivator. You know, a brilliant wife. I live in a beautiful place. I've got what looks like a great job, and like I've created my perfect dream lifestyle, if you like. And yet, still, there's questions are there.
Hmm.
And it's because if you haven't got a guiding star, if you haven't got a reason why, or even asking yourself those questions, then it can be a bit difficult to keep going. So I think like this work that you're talking about is just massively important. How do people get hold of just while we're on the subject, how do people get the workbook you just talked about? Because I know it's a free thing that they can access before
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah, it's available. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can get access to all my free stuff and all my stuff. It'll bring you on a quick journey.
Mark, what's your free LinkedIn profile so people know because they're not looking.
It's / Aylward Mark. It's the LinkedIn URL / Aylward Mark.
It's Aylward.
Yeah. It's
Um,
actually an English name, so it might be familiar to you. Most people can't spell it the first time around. AYLWARDMARK.
cool.
And I think if you typed in Mark Aylward, that my LinkedIn profile would pop up first. It's a fairly unique name, but yeah. And then my YouTube channel. I mean, it's readily available anywhere you initially touch me online.
Yeah.
So website, LinkedIn profile, and YouTube channel.
Cool. So without going to the maybe the detail of everything in the workbook, what would be the first step? So something I want to get something super practical that people can like maybe a mind exercise or some people actually work on if they're driving or listen to this while they're working. Like what could someone do right now to start actually taking steps towards the better future for themselves, if that's, the way we want to look at it? Or how would you phrase that? And what would be like something that people practical can actually start doing right now, with a view to creating the future they desire?
I think it's very simple, Steve. I think it's just not admitting, but recognizing that it's time to have a conversation with myself. And it's time to have a candid conversation with myself. And I think the words that jump out to me are self accountability and alignment. Am I acting and doing in alignment with who I am? Well, how do I know that? Well, you have to find out who you are first. And the workbook, I tell people, and it's in the introduction to the workbook, is you have to allocate a couple hours of quiet time, which in itself is almost impossible for everyone, right? So the simplicity of that is the power of that. And I'm talking quiet room, no noise, phone off, no dog, no kids. Hey, honey, I'm going to be gone for 2 hours, and unless it's an emergency, don't interrupt me. And then that process can be excruciating for some people. What do I do? What do I ask? Well, just keep asking yourself who you are. What do you love to do? What do you hate doing that you have to do? What would you do if you didn't need any money? What did you love to do as a child? It's a series of, after you're done, you'll be like, well, that was simple. Yeah, but it was very difficult. And I think that most of us go to help for that. It's very conducive of an agent, if you will, and that's how I operate as an agent. I'm gonna be the person that kind of caresses you through this conversation. So you can do it on your own, but I think that admitting that I need to have a conversation with myself is the very, very beginning of that. So I don't know if that's as specific as you'd like, but I think that if most of us could just go, "Yep, I have to have that conversation with myself," you've begun.
Yeah. No, I think the acknowledgement of the need is often the biggest or the most challenging thing. It's like the admitting you have a problem. If you
Hmm.
know, it's that sort of step. It's like you've got to actually, I'm not saying this is a problem necessarily in the same way of saying, addiction, where that the term comes from. You're like, you've got to admit that you're the addict before you can actually take steps to not becoming the addict. And
It's
the one
true.
thing, it's interesting, like one of the things I learned actually just as a slight side is like the talking specifically about addiction is like the conditioning that we put ourselves in as business owners, especially, or just anyone in any position they're in. Like whatever your behavior has been up till now, like that is your norm. And if any moving away from that behavior or that thought patterns is the same as breaking an addiction, because from a medical perspective, like the way you get your dopamine now is to reinforce the status quo, is to reinforce your norm. And if you
Hmm.
change that, like by doing this kind of work, it can feel really uncomfortable. And now
Yes.
I really push back on this stuff, and I needed a coach. I needed someone to guide me through it, and they gave me some no, I can't say the word visualization exercises to
Yep.
help me actually just think about things in a slightly different way because I was really struggling with this. Is there
Yep.
anything like that you do with your clients that maybe they come to you and they're really struggling to get started? Is there anything more that people can do to overcome those initial resistances?
Well, I've tried to set it up so that you can go and like my True Purpose workbook, and I also have a, pardon my French, get your shit together 5-day email course, which is specifically focused on helping men, high performing men, um, who have had their confidence shaken by something in life. And I'm sure you can think of some examples. We all can. Is go through those courses, go through that workbook, and then go, okay, if this method resonates with me, if I like the cut of this guy's jib, so to speak, I'm going to call him. I'm going to get on his calendar. And then the second step is a 30-minute consultation, which is free. And that's when I start the what do you mean by that? Why? And at the end of that 30-minute conversation, I can typically give someone at least two or three tactical things to do that without my assistance moving forward at no cost would be beneficial for them to do. And then a certain percentage of those people say, okay, I want to hang out with you longer. I want to go deeper with you. And that's usually, as I said earlier, I haven't fully automated that process yet, so it's time with me. And it's usually somewhere between 2 and 3 hours, and I'll spread it over 2 or 3 weeks because in between the second and third hour, there's work to do. I give you instructions to do things and then come back, and then we go over that. And I have found historically that with 3 hours max over maybe 3 or 4 weeks, with a couple hours in between sessions, people can they wake up. It's just like, I had no idea I even had permission to do this. And I'm like, you're the one that gives yourself permission.
Can I dive into, because you mentioned something about this get your shit together email
Yeah.
chain. And so can you share with us, you said there's 5 emails in the sequence. Share with us like the what one of those, like maybe the one that is the biggest opening for people or whatever, or what the one that you feel is the most suitable to share, so people can have something to work on and go away and actually think about today. And then obviously if they like it, they can come and find out more.
Yeah, I think again, I keep going back to the fact that if you get yourself to the course and you receive the first email, you're halfway home. Most people don't take that step, and I'm responsible for that in some capacity because of my messaging. It could be more efficient, I suppose, or more abundant in more places. But I don't know if you've ever heard, I can't remember the guy's name, but he wrote a book called Tiny Habits. And it's this notion of really the way to make progress of any kind is to start taking baby steps. And there's a couple of spots in the course where I just say, look, just pick one thing that you want to get better at communication. Okay, well, what could you do to do that? So it challenges you throughout the course, and not a lot of work. It's not meant to be a solution. It's meant to get gas in the tank and the ignition started. So I think it's the idea that you don't have to leap. You just have to take a step. And well, for instance, what? Have you ever meditated? Have you ever prayed? Have you ever done visualization work? Have you ever done breath work? Have you ever done anything outside of your comfort zone? Okay, well, let's find that one thing. That's that's probably the most helpful piece of advice. It's not as specific as you may have preferred, but that's really what it's all about, is just getting started. Okay, I'm tired of being where I am, whatever that might mean. So I'm going to keep going back to that because I think that the magic is in the beginning.
Yeah. No, I think there's some, I mean, there are some very practical, implementable ideas you shared there, even though you were sharing a concept. I mean, some of the things you said there, like about visualization, about meditation, about breath work, uh, 18 months ago, I'd not done any of those things. And working with my own coach, that he encouraged me to do all of those things.
Yeah.
And I had huge, I like just life-changing experiences. And I would have never imagined that was even something that would have, yeah, I just had no idea what it would be or wouldn't be, to be honest, beforehand, because I'd never tried.
Yeah,
And
no
so I
one,
think,
no,
yeah,
yeah, no one does. I think, I go back to, when my divorce was finalized, I had some decisions to make, and the children were aging up and being self-accountable and they were taking care of things. I was no longer necessarily having to be a dad every day. They still want me around, but they don't need me, kind of thing. And so I was faced with similar decisions, and I was like, well, you could go to bars and drink beers and pick up women and live a shallow life, or you could maybe think about going back to church and maybe try yoga like my daughters have been trying to get me to do for years. So I had all these choices, and I recognized that this is entirely up to me. And 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 the challenge that I found, and perhaps you did as well, is most of these things don't bring none of these things bring immediate results. So there's a period of time where you're doing the work, and most of it's pretty enjoyable. It's pretty peaceful, and I'm a physical athletic guy. I always have been, so I like moving around. But you don't see any results for weeks. And I think what I found coaching people is most people, they'll get into it for a few days, maybe a few weeks, they won't see any results, and they'll just stop. And I'm like, well, no, you've done all of this work. You're getting benefit. You're just not recognizing it yet. Just be patient. And that's the second piece. And I'm sure if you're coaching anybody in any capacity, you've seen this. One of my daughters is a gut health coach. She's like, I can't help the people that won't do the work, that won't change their habits. They agreed they were gonna. It made sense what to do. They got the resources in place, and then they just didn't do the work. And it's the most frustrating thing about anyone, I suppose, that coaches.
yeah, 100%. And that's, one of the reasons why I think knowing how many things that I started over the years and never continued through, and you kick yourself for it and you feel bad about it, and then you just, the next day captain comes on and off you go. And I think that's one of the things about having a framework. Like I know you've got a framework, 7 pillars framework that you talk about. And that's kind of stuff that I think is massively beneficial. I know for my clients, I'm a coach, I've been coaching for 9 years now. And, if it was just me talking to somebody with just my ideas, then you get a very low success rate, a very low traction rate. It's when you give people a plan and you give
Mm-hmm.
people a formula or a proven framework or whatever you want to call it. That's when people got something tangible to actually go, okay, I can see where I am. I can see where the next step is. I can see where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And often that's the key to, I think, motivating people past that initial stages of doing the work, getting no results, thinking it's never going to happen, and then suddenly bang, it
Yeah.
all can change.
Yeah, I think systems and processes and documentation and framework, anytime you can bring structure to a message, I think it's more easily consumable. And we're humans, we're all the same. And the other thing that strikes me, Steve, throughout all this is that I think it's important to recognize that there's no destination here, and not to be cliche, but if you're seeking a destination, I mean, death is the destination, however you believe in the afterlife or whatever, but everything else is the journey. You just got the only way to fail with this stuff is to quit, right? And I've quit stuff. Yeah, sometimes you have to quit stuff or quit people, but the journey is like if people can recognize that if I just get rid of this concept of destination, well, then it just becomes a matter of process. Is your process in place? What is that process? What does it look like in terms of tactics? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it a couple of times a day? If you can get to a process that is enjoyable, simple, perhaps inexpensive, repeatable, that's where the work should go. And I think it's challenging for most people because we don't think that we're in control of that. We cede control of that to others like our parents, our teachers, our boss, investors, our board, whatever it might be. Once you take that back and make it yours, there's no limits, and that's an important part of the beginning of my conversation with anybody is let's knock the walls down to that box because I don't even know what that box is there for. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. For me, especially, I mean, having been through different, as I said before, stages in my life, and now at a point where I feel I have taken back control and crafting a lifestyle that suits my highest needs or meets my highest needs, I should say. And so the work for me was figuring out what those needs were. Like to live for me, it was to live with presence, purpose, and freedom. And it
Hmm.
comes off my tongue very easily now because I've said it so many times. But
Hmm.
actually, in the initial stages, it felt awkward saying those things, and I didn't. I thought, am I just saying them because they're nice words to say, but actually the work I did to come up with those three words, it was a long, hard battle, like to figure
Hmm.
out what it actually means and why those things are so important. And but once I really took ownership of them and made them and realized how much authenticity is, sorry, in those words and the meaning for me,
Hmm.
then they have become my guiding star. And for a cliche phrase, it's like enjoy the journey, not just the destination. Exactly what you've just been saying now.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like if I can craft a day that serves those three values the highest,
Hmm.
then today's a good day.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if today's been a good day, well, what there's nothing else really matters.
Well, and I think the maybe in addition to that, because that's all I believe 100% correct, is, you know, you have to be able to, I have to be able to, and I kind of teach this, I suppose, but you have to be able to forgive yourself when you make a mistake or you don't have a good day. Because again, it's like that's okay. I think I've seen a lot of people, they'll get weeks into a physical routine and then they'll just stop for a day and they'll stop for a day and then they'll stop for 2 days and then they just won't go back. So when you bump up against a restriction or you make a mistake or you skip a day or you get just feel lazy one day, just get back up. Just get back up. Don't beat yourself up over that. That just makes you a human. So I think that self-forgiveness is another thing that's kind of facilitated through an agent. If you can't forgive yourself, let me give you permission to do that right now.
Yeah. I think part of that as well is so much about not comparing yourself to others because the
Hmm.
picture that other people allow you to see of themselves, their lives, and their how they are acting is not the real one.
No.
There is so much that people are hiding when they are putting themselves the mask that they wear in public. And if you believe that thing you see, that the way their life is 100% reflection of everything they do and think and feel,
Yeah.
and that's what we compare ourselves to. Uh,
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
we all, no matter how like I said, I do live in Sweden. I do work when I want to work and all that stuff, but I also have really shit days. And I
Yep.
also work bloody hard sometimes. And I also
Hmm.
have kids that drive me insane half the time. And all these things that everyone goes through. And I just don't want to tell you that, I had an argument with my 9-year-old son. I feel really bad about it. And I shouted at him and I really hate myself for it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should talk about that stuff, but actually that's not related directly to my business, I guess. That's why I don't share that stuff. But it's true. That's what happens.
Well, I think that the authenticity of what you've just said is beneficial to your audience. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you do. I benefit from, and I don't proselytize, but I benefit from a pretty strong belief in God. And, I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson is, but he talks about theology now because I think he became Christian over the last few years. But he says, if you don't want to believe in God, just take the last six commandments, forget about the first four, and live your life by the last six commands. They're secular. Don't cheat on your wife. Don't harm your friends. Don't. I mean, it's if you have a set of rules and you go, okay, if I live by those rules, then I am fully aligned. Then it just becomes a function of, okay, I'm going to do this now. Is that aligned with my rules? Yes or no? If it's not, don't do it, you know? And then that routine becomes, okay, that's my process or my framework. Those are my rules, right? All I have to do is live my day just asking the question before I enact another task, is that aligned with my rules? And then that becomes very simple. And it's difficult to maintain that consistently, but that's no different than exercise or eating well, you know?
Yeah. Habit, discipline, all these lovely words that are so easy to say and so difficult to do. But they are what work, you know. So
I've got a routine now that is I'm very comfortable with, and it begins when I wake up. And it's there's breath work, there's meditation, there's visualization, and there's journaling. And then in that journaling is a to-do list for the day, and it's usually three or four things. You know, sometimes it's categories, sometimes it's very specific things. But if I at the end of the day, if I can look at that and the boxes are checked, it doesn't matter how I feel. I had a good day. The feelings will catch up.
I like that. I like that a lot. Mark, is there anything else that you wish I'd ask you that you'd like to share before we bring this to a close, bring this to a close?
Yeah, I would just encourage anybody who's listening, if any of that stuff made sense, start your journey. Click on a link and get on my calendar or get the workbook or get the shit together course. Just put your toe in the pool. That's I can't make you do that. I can't encourage you to do that other than just ask right now. But no, I think that, we covered most of the stuff. That's my philosophy on getting better, becoming more valuable, getting yourself out of a rut. It's not a huge step. You don't have to jump off a cliff. You just have to click a button.
Yeah. No, I like it. Baby steps.
That's
Cool.
it. Yeah,
Ma-
those are easier than the big ones. So
Exactly, exactly.
give
Mark,
give yeah, give yourself permission.
thank you very much. Mark, before you do go, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you. I ask
Sure.
everybody these questions that comes on the show. The I'm a bit of a tech geek. I like anything gadgetry or
Mhm.
technically on the computer. And so tell me, what are a couple of your favorite apps or gadgets that you're using at the moment that you can share with the world?
So gadgets. I just started working with Go High Level, the
Yeah.
CRM platform that's getting all the buzz, and it's way more capability than I can handle, but the facility of it and the ease of use is it's pretty astounding, and I've also I'm a chat GPT guy. I'm not technical, but I think one of the interesting things, Steve, that I found is I am ideal in context. I don't accept things that I don't understand. I investigate. And what I discovered a couple of weeks ago was that's what prompting is all about. Context. You need to be more specific. And because I've lived my life, that's my profession. I seek context. I need to get to the bottom of this. I'm pretty good at prompting, and the challenge with it is it's a rabbit hole. And if I accept the next request, now that you've done this, do you want me to do this, this, and this? I just got to say no, not right now.
Yeah, it's a
So
bit like scrolling on your social media. You need to know when to stop.
the same thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the same.
if anyone just because you put it up, if anyone's interested in Go High Level, then go and check out our tools page, which is assist.academy/tools. There's a link on there for Go High Level, which I think is an awesome CRM. And I'm actually going to do an episode in the very near future talking all about why I moved off our old CRM onto Go High Level and my journey through. And the
Cool.
second thing is ChatGPT is part of my world every single day now. And so again, just future casting, I'll be doing a session in the next couple of weeks. So do hit subscribe, all about prompt engineering. And we've actually created I've created, I should say, a prompt engineer prompt. So something that actually helps you craft and write professional prompts. I'll be showing how to get access to that in a couple of weeks. Cool. Thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah.
And so the title, last question, the title of this podcast is Systemize Your Success, but what does success mean to you?
I think of the words that you used. I think that being able to spend time with the people that I love, um, being able to be happy about the work that I do, and the first placement I ever made when I was 26 years old, Steve, was an electrical engineer, a single father of three young children, and he was about to lose his house, and he said to me, "I saved his life." And I thought, I think this is what God wants me to do, help people move from being stuck professionally to a better place. And so that's what success looks like to me, the ability to help as many people as possible move from a place that's not satisfying to a place where they're perhaps also serving the world. And as cliche as that sounds, if I could do those things, have that freedom and that level of service, I'm sure I would consider myself successful as I do.
I don't think it sounds cliche at all. I think it sounds very wise. So we'll finish on that very wise note. So thank you
Yeah,
very much indeed, Mark. Been a pleasure.
yeah, me too, Steve. Thanks for having me.